Welcome to this short series on how to make your own soaps, lotions, and even your washing powder or washing soap and dishwashing soap. So we will take you through an exciting journey on how to make some natural products for your home and for yourself, for your own body. Firstly, we will just go briefly into the history of soap. It's quite interesting to see how soap developed through the ages. The earliest evidence of soap making was found in ancient Babylon, 2,800 years before Christ. And they found a soap-like substance in cylinders. And on the cylinder was written that they used oils and ashes to make the soap. Although soap must have existed before that, but this is the earliest evidence we have. Originally, this soap was used only to clean wool so that they could do weaving, and not for personal hygiene, not for using on the body. Moses spoke about the laws of hygiene in 1450 BC, and if you think of it, it was probably the first time that the Israelites heard about laws of health and laws of hygiene. The biblical accounts suggest that the Israelites produced some form of soap. If you look at Jeremiah 2 verse 22, it says, "Wash thee with lye or nitre," and nitre is saltpeter, "and take thee much soap." So sometimes they translate in the Bible soap for nitre, sometimes lye, so we're not quite sure if it was actual soap or whether it was just the lye that they used to make the soap. But anyway, in Malachi 3 verse 2 it speaks of fuller soap. In Job 9:30 it says, "Wash your hands with lye." Now lye, you can't really wash your hands with lye, it's caustic. So I presume it was soap. It was a form of soap that they used. And they used it for personal hygiene, not like the other nations that used it for cleaning wool and cleaning garments. The early Greeks apparently did not use soap, but washed their bodies with sand and ashes and oil. What they did was they mixed sand and ashes, put it all over the body, and then scraped it off with a scraper it's like exfoliating. And then they would apply the oil again, and then once they get all dirty again, they'll start the process over and scrape it all off. The Ebers papyrus in Egypt, 1550 BC, reveals that ancient Egyptians combined both animal and vegetable oils with alkaline salts to produce a soap-like substance. They used this mixture to treat sores, skin diseases, as well as washing garments, but not for personal hygiene. The Phoenicians made soap from goat's tallow and wood ashes in 600 BC. And the early Romans, you don't want to know what they did. They had buckets on the street, and they would provide these buckets for people to urinate in. And then they would take the urine and take it to a factory and let it ferment and let it decompose. As it decomposed, it became ammonia, and the ammonia was what cleaned the garments. But I hope they didn't use it for personal hygiene. So that's how they cleaned their clothes. The early Romans made cleansing agents from decomposed urine. Later they used ashes and goat's tallow. Tallow is the fat of the goat, to cleanse fabrics. Using soap for personal hygiene is not found in Roman history. The Celts made their soap from animal fat and plant ashes, and they named their product sapo, from which the word soap is derived, probably originally from the Latin word sebum. Sebum is the excretion of oils on your skin and in your scalp, which means fat or tallow. In the 2nd century, Greek physician Galen recommended soap for medical and cleansing purposes. This was only in the 2nd century that they started using it to eliminate bacteria and to clean their bodies. The use of soap increased in Europe, but it declined with Roman civilization because the Romans had their public baths and they would do bathing there, but they never used the soap for cleansing for themselves. And after the Roman civilization, it all was gone. There was no more public bathing. And then during the Middle Ages, diseases increased, and people believe that it was because they weren't bathing anymore, they weren't using soap anymore, and all those diseases, the plagues of the Middle Ages, came to be. When Rome fell in 467 AD, so did bathing. Lack of cleanliness contributed to the many plagues of the Middle Age. In the 7th century, now from the 2nd to the 7th century, there was nothing. Only by the 7th century did soap making revive again. And it revived in Spain and Italy using goat fat and ashes. And in France, they started using olive oil and fragrances. So it started to become more refined. But the story is told that King Louis XIV in the 17th century had 3 of his soap makers killed because their soap irritated his skin. So soap making was still not completely well done at that stage. Between the 12th and the 17th centuries, the English started making soap. The wealthy ladies of the Tudor era, the 15th century, started using Castile soap. They started using it daily, and it was extremely expensive because they used the Castile soap, which is an olive oil soap that is made only from olive oil, and it had to be imported. And so only the rich could afford that. And during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I in the 16th century, soap usage was greater in England than any other country, although she said she took a bath only every 4 weeks, whether it was necessary or not. So, but it started. Taxation on soap started crippling the soap making industry, and it was only abolished in 1853. So soap was squashed. They couldn't make it. It was too expensive, and only the rich could afford it. The 18th and 19th century, bathing became fashion, and the French chemist Nicolas Leblanc discovered the process of transforming sodium chloride, which is salt, into soda ash. Now, why is this important? The soda ash, if you took soda ash and you mixed it with lime, you would get lye and you would get chalk. So it was important because now they could make lye, and it was more controlled. They could control the process of soap making, and it would be more safe as well. This discovery became the most important chemical process in the 19th century. In the 19th century, Louis Pasteur also discovered that personal hygiene helps to prevent the spread of disease, which increased the demand for soap. So from the 19th century onwards, people started using soap again, and they understood the reason why they had to use soap: to destroy bacteria and to keep the body clean from disease. Now, what is soap? How does it work? How does it come by? How do you produce it? Now, soap is made by combining fats and lye. Now, the fats and the lye, when they combine completely, and it's a perfect combination, there will be no more lye in the product. It will not be caustic, and it will be a foaming agent. And it will be, how it works is that the soap molecule has 2 arms. The one arm is a hydrophilic arm, which attracts water. The other arm is a hydrophobic arm, which repels water. So the one that repels the water, the hydrophobic arm, will bind with the dirt. It will bind with oils and grime and dirt, and with washing, if you add more water, it will wash it away. And it actually spreads the water more evenly over the garment or the thing that you want to clean. So if you didn't have soap, you could not cover a whole garment, for instance, and remove all the dirt. You'll have to go spot by spot. So it actually it changes the surface tension so that, and that's where the word surfactant comes from. It's a surface active agent. It's a surfactant, so it changes the surface tension, and in that way the soap can work. So soap is made by combining fats and oils. We've said that already. You get two kinds of lye. You get sodium hydroxide, and then you get potassium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide makes a solid bar of soap, and potassium hydroxide makes fluid soap. The potassium hydroxide you get from the ashes of a fire, just wood ashes. But the sodium hydroxide you get from, they manufacture it, and you'll get a solid bar. Otherwise it's a soft bar. Now lye is caustic. It's about a pH of 14, which is very, very high pH, and we have to take care. If we work with lye, it is important to go through all the safety rules because it is caustic. Okay, so when it works with when you combine the lye and the oil, you will what happens is the lye will split the oil into fatty acids and glycerine. So that's why you get good glycerine. If you have a good soap, you'll have lots of glycerine. Now glycerine is an amazing thing. It's a humectant, which means it attracts and keeps moisture. It keeps the water out of the air, and it'll keep your body hydrated. So you need the glycerine in your soap, and also in your oils. When you make a lotion, you need that humectant to keep the moisture. Now, in the old days, lye was made by leaching. The strong solution of lye was leached out of the ashes. What they would do is they would put a barrel on a table, and they would layer the barrel with gravel and then straw, and then the ashes, quite a lot of ashes, and then fill it up with water. And there would be a little hole in the barrel, and the water would leach through the ashes and through the straw and the gravel, and it'll sort of come out as a very pure lye solution, and that would be, then they would have another container where it would go into. Now this method was unfortunately not very consistent. You didn't know if you used a different kind of wood, the lye would be either stronger or weaker, so it wasn't very consistent. That's why they started to make a chemical lye, so that it would be more consistent. The only way that you could, in the old days, know whether the lye was right or not was to put an egg or a potato in the solution and see whether it floats. But still, that wasn't good enough. In modern days, lye is made from pure salt and mainly used as a drain cleaner. Nobody uses it anymore for soap making in the factories. Lye is also made from lime and soda ash, as I said before. If you combine the two, you get lye and you get chalk. This way we can measure exactly how much lye we use in soap making. So I've already explained how soap works with the surface tension and everything. Commercial soap, you see, why did they start with commercial soap? Commercial soap you can use everywhere. 100% pure soap reacts sometimes with the water. If you wash your body in a very in hard water, the soap might leave scum because it's reacting with the minerals in the water. So people said, well, you know, I want something that will work everywhere, wherever I go in the world. So commercial soap started because it's more constant. You can use it anywhere with any kind of water. But the problem is, if you have commercial soap, there are so many bad chemicals that they add into the soap to make it soap. You have to have it foaming, so the problem is you have to use chemicals for it. So during the World War I, commercial soap as we know it today came into existence. The injuries of war brought an increased need for cleaning agents, but ingredients needed to make soap were were scarce. So German scientists created a new form of soap, which they call detergent, basically. So basically the soaps that we get now are detergents made from synthetic compounds. Most commercial soaps available today are actually detergents. If you see 100% soap on the label, that's fine, that's 100% soap. But if it says something like body bar or luxury bar or something like that, by law they're not allowed to call it soap, so they will call it something like a luxury bar. Then you know it is a chemical soap, not a real soap. Commercial soap makers now, they realize that glycerine is a very good product to have. So what they do is they take from the soap, they take out the glycerine, which is the protection in your soap, and they sell it to the cosmetic world or wherever it's necessary. So you've lost your glycerine as well. And antibacterial washes. You know, consumers think that antibacterial washes are more effective at preventing the spread of germs, but we have no scientific evidence that they are any better than plain soap and water. In fact, some data suggests that antibacterial ingredients may do more harm than good over the long term. This is Dr. Janet Woodcock, the director of the FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. So they've done research, and all these antibacterial solutions actually do more harm. Okay, so what do we need to make soap? I'm going to show you now what we need. Obviously, we need oils, and I have an assortment of oils here that I use as my basic oils. Obviously, you can have luxury oils as well, but these are just the basics. And avocado is a very nice oil to use. Castor oil, coconut oil, olive oil, palm oil. You have to have hard oils, and I'll explain that later when we make soap. You need hard oils and you need soft oils in your recipe, but many soaps are made just from soft oils. But the problem is they take so much longer to cure. So you will have, let's say you make a Castile soap, which is 100% olive oil. That soap will take 6 months to cure before you can use it. And nobody has that much time. Aleppo. I don't know if you know about Aleppo, where they ruined the city. The city was bombed during the war. Aleppo made world-famous Castile soaps, beautiful soaps. Right, so the oils, you need oils, and then you need lye. Now remember, lye is caustic. When you handle lye, you need to use gloves. This lye is in flakes. Some of them are in powder form. So that's the lye that we will be using. And we also need, obviously, water. We use distilled water because we don't want any minerals in the water to interfere with the soap making. And you can use essential oils to make them smell good. And then you need some utensils. You obviously need a good thermometer. And you're going to, the other one that I have here is a normal one that you use for cooking, but it works well. I use this one in my lye and that one in my oils. And then you have to have a very safe, heat-resistant a container for the lye, because the lye heats up. As soon as you add water to the lye, it's going to heat up, and it's going to even produce gas. What is good to have at hand is some vinegar. So if you have some vinegar at hand, keep it close by. If you have a big spill, neutralize it quickly with your vinegar, and then your problem is solved. And then I have a container where I put the cold water in so that I can cool down the lye. You need a pot or another one of these if you have, but I like a pot. You need a pot to put your oils in and to melt the oils on the stove. And then you need a stick blender. Stick blender is going to be the one thing that will make your soap happen very quickly. Without the stick blender, you will be stirring for a long time. But the stick blender is amazing. Then we need a mold, obviously. Once you've made your soap, you're going to need some mold. We have different kinds of molds. The silicone molds are the best, otherwise you struggle to get the soap out, and silicone just works so much better. And then safety measures. You're going to need some goggles, right, to protect your eyes. You can even wear these over your glasses. If you wear glasses, you can put this over your glasses and that'll protect your glasses. You need some form of apron. You need long sleeve clothing, long pants if you have, and closed shoes, just for in case you spill your lye. You need gloves. I use the surgical gloves, but it's just because I like to feel the heat through them. But the more safe one would be a stronger one. And of course, the most important thing here is your scale. You need a good digital scale that will go to the finest amount. This one is in ounces and in grams. If you want to go really fine, you use the grams. Ounces, I like to use ounces, but grams are just fine. When we come back, we will be making this soap, ivory soap. It's a beautiful soap, easy to make, not much complication in it, just the plain oil, lye, and maybe an essential oil with it. And yes, so we'll see you again.